Good morning, students. Mr. Mize, good to be with you. For those of you wondering where I am, it's a Studio Ghibli setting. However, for those of you that have ever been to Central Oregon, specifically the city of Bend, it's one of the most sought after skiing destinations in the U.S. at least. There is actually a place, I've been there, there's actually a place that looks like this. And it's beautiful. It's just by a bigger lake called Todd Lake. Anyway, I'm just thinking about the outdoors, given how much time I'm indoors. Typical human, always wants what they can have. But today, this lesson is all about putting the finishing touches on phase 3 of our found poem, which you guys are submitting, which I'm excited to see. So I'm going to share my screen with you and let's get started. So at this point, you are already done with phase 1, you've submitted phase 2, you've hunted, you've gathered, you have arranged, and now it's really about, if I'm going to use a food or a restaurant term, it's all about plating, which it has to do with presentation. This is that moment in Chopped where you're scrambling at the end trying to decide how should I plate this thing? How should I cut it up? How should I serve this to these people who are going to be trying my creation, essentially. So we're getting into that final phase today where you are actually putting the work on the wall. You're not going to be there to explain to every person that reads your poem why you made the choices that you did. You're just going to have to trust that what's there is a product that you're happy with. And so really you're putting it up on the wall. I mentioned this last time, just a word of caution as well, is just how little poetry we read together. I posted some on our Canvas homepage. I'm actually going to go there now real quick. So let me head on over to Canvas. And if you haven't watched these, you should, because they're clever. Just looking here, there are 2 videos that correspond with these poems, and it really does give you a sense of where to break lines up, how to include stanzas. Those are the spaces in between the clusters of words, how to include stanzas in your poem. So I'm putting these up here just as a reference tool. Some of you have plenty of poetry. Some of you have plenty of poetry reading under your belt. Others of you perhaps not so much. And so that's why I'm just trying to make sure that we are just giving ourselves the opportunity to absorb some actual work. So when it comes to writing our own, we'll at least feel a little bit more comfortable. So coming back, so again, just that word of caution, you might still need to spend more time reading some other poetry examples to see how that thing is structured, where those line breaks are happening. And so as I use this as a visual illustration for us, really what this phase is about. What you're seeing here is a finished tapestry. You'll see the finished product on the right, that's the front side. And then if you actually look at the back, you'll notice it almost looks like a Muppet in its origin story. It hasn't been fully put together, but just notice the way the work looks from the front to the back. I'm going to show you another example of this. This is a piece of embroidery. It's very old, actually. It's done by a woman. She's passed away. Her name is Corrie ten Boom. But this is actually the back of some tapestry that she did. And just notice just the swirls, the colors. It just seems like a lot of randomness. But if you actually flip it over, you'll see this. And really, today is about showing this work. We're not showing the phases that got us there. We're showing the final product that has intentionality, has reasons for this being there. I wanted to share this from Corrie ten Boom. And she was a survivor of the Nazi occupation in Holland. She is a Dutch woman. She was a Dutch woman. She's passed away. But her family were part of the Dutch resistance, and they actually hid Jewish families in their home and risked their lives, and they actually put in the concentration camps themselves later on, and they survived. But she says this, she says, although the threads of my life have often seemed knotted, I know by faith that on the other side of the embroidery, there is a crown. And this is her work, just going back, this is her embroidery. And so we want to respect all the work that has gone into this through your first and second phase. And now it's about showing that work where everything that you're putting on the page is ideally there for a reason, for a reason. So this is an example that you've already seen. This would really be closer to a phase 2, because you'll notice that the writer, in this case, Tara Tanjasiri, that the writer is including page numbers still. You'll also notice that the line length, or sorry, the line number is slightly off. Again, you guys are aiming for about 10 lines, and I'm also asking you to include some paragraph breaks. So I'm actually going to go, actually just getting a closer look, you notice the writer does a good job of making sure they give credit to the original source from these pages. I also want you to notice how many different page numbers are happening, and they're not consecutive, right? Because the danger with doing like a line from page 118, then another line from page 118, then a line from page 119, is it actually starts to sound like the book, not an actual poem. So that's one thing I just wanted to remind you guys as you're making these finishing touches as well. I'm going to bring us to our actual handout. And if you don't have it out, I would take it out now. But here it is. And I'm just kind of breaking down some more recommendations for us as you get ready to show your work. Stanza breaks. We don't have paragraph breaks in poetry. We have stanza breaks. That's where you hit the enter key twice and you see an actual break, a line separating one collection of the poem away from another one. So I'm asking you to actually put at least one stanza break in. Where does it make the best sense to create a break in the middle of a poem and have a new stanza? Again, that's a decision that you have to make. No one can really make that for you. But as long as it's purposeful, that's fine. I'm going to scroll down so you guys can see my own poem as an example of phase 3 of the show and tell. You'll notice that there are these stanza breaks, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Technically, there's 4 stanzas in this poem. You have the first 4 lines followed by this next cluster. The rocks tell me if you feel misunderstood line, that would be considered its own stanza. So I'm going above the call of this assignment, where I'm only asking you guys to include at least one break for a stanza. And so anyway, just wanted to mention that. Also, the other thing too, I mentioned this last time, and I'm just going to read from here. Sometimes a poet will interrupt a complete thought with a line break. Remember, this is important. Artificial intelligence like Microsoft Word or Google Docs should never be the ones to determine how long a line of poetry should be or how far apart the lines are spaced, right? Some default settings are double spaced, so you have these really far apart lines. Well, did you make that decision for a reason, or are you allowing Microsoft Word or Google Doc to make those decisions for you? It should be you, the writer, making those decisions about spacing, not Google Docs, not Microsoft Word. Real intelligence, not the artificial kind. So that's on you. Also, just going down the next one, the title. You want your title to actually reflect your poem. Your title should not be the name of your book. Think about why that's a terrible idea, especially if you're trying to disguise it as your own work. Yeah, so your title should, you can match the theme. It could actually be words that you already use in the poem itself. It really is up to you, so long as it fits the overall structure, that it makes sense that that would function as the title of the particular poem that you chose. My Found Poem, nope. Phase 3, Show and Tell, nope. Not title options. You guys can do better than that, and I know you can. I made mention of this to give credit where credit is due. Be sure to give the author and their original work kudos at the bottom of your poem. So I'm going to scroll to the down. You'll see mine just here as I'm giving Dave Edgar's, the author of The Wild Things, kudos. I'm going to invite you to do the same. So the one piece here that's interesting is I'm actually going to ask you to analyze your own poem. And so that's what you're looking at here. And I've broken this down into the parts for you. Now, just keep in mind, anything I'm asking you to do, I've already done for you. So if you scroll down again, you're actually going to see me analyzing my poem that I'm showing and telling to you right now. So here it is. You can read that on your own, but I've essentially broken it down into questions. So asking you to firstly describe your process and deciding which lines to use from your book. This is taking you back to phase 1. This is you allowing us to see the embroidery from the backside a little bit. Tone, what's the original tone, the feel of your poem that you pull passages from? We talked about different tone words, melancholy, exciting, joyful, brooding, intense, sincere. These are all tone words. And so how would you describe yours? Does your poem, does it match the tone of the book that you're pulling it from? Or would you say you kind of take it into its own tonal world? Um, and so those are some questions I want you to be thinking about as you would describe the tone of this. Structure, explain why you chose to structure the poem as you did. Why did you end the lines where you ended them? Why did you create a new stanza where you did it? Again, these are decisions that you have to make that should have purpose behind them, not just randomness. Some of you may stumble across a metaphor, simile, or even a symbol in your poem. I want you to talk about that. I want you to talk about its significance. How do you see the significance of that metaphor, that simile or symbolism? You were not required to use one of those literary devices or to steal one of those literary devices, but it might show up in your poem, and I want you to talk about those. How do those fit in with your poem itself? And then lastly, the fifth part, explaining your feelings about the finished product. Do you feel like the poem took on its own identity, or do you feel that it is a bit too close to its original source? How strong do you feel your element of disguise is on the poem? And so just scrolling down, the rubric is there. You've seen it. It was on your phase 2 as you guys were arranging these. But just scrolling down, you'll notice here's my poem. I'm actually going to read it for you, not today. It's going to be part of something we're going to do on Thursday, but you're welcome to read it. And immediately after my poem, I've included my analysis, just going back to those questions and answering those questions. Guys, notice the paragraph breaks. You see those paragraph breaks? Yeah, guys, I love me some good paragraph breaks. You know why? Because my eyes need them. Look at these things. You know how much time I'm spending in front of a computer, just like you right now? These are getting drained when there's just one big long piece of text. So give me some paragraph breaks, please. Anyway, back to this. So my analysis is right after on the next page, but you also notice if you scroll down or look at this same document that I've also included each of the other 2 phases. So my arrange phase is here. My first phase is here. So I actually want to see the phases all in one. I want to see every single phase all in one, but really the star of the show, when I open up that document, should be your actual found poem. Nice and clean. For those of you feeling inspired, you want to draw something symbolic on it, you're welcome to do that, but you don't have to. The rubric is there, the expectations are there, all my examples are there. So in the meantime, if you have questions, something you're not sure about, feel free to ask those. But guys, also keep in mind, you might need to go find something else because you realize at this phase still that something isn't fitting. And guess what? That's fine. Go find another line that you feel might be better, be a better fit. That's how this works. Creativity isn't just magically, a strong piece of creativity isn't just magically arrived at. Again, just to take us back to this, not that guy, to this guy, or yeah, just to take us back here. Like, that's messy. That's fine. The whole creative process is messy. The backside of this tapestry of a bird perched on a wintry tree, it's messy. So you're allowed to be messy still. Not Lionel, of course, he's his own man, but the process is still continuing. So if you need to make a revision, now's the time to make a revision. But if you have questions, just ask. And I look forward to seeing that final product. All right, guys, talk to you soon. Bye for now.